Nico never took a breath in this world. And that fact alone, that fact should stop us for a moment, should make us sit with what was taken. Now, there is something important I want you to understand about the summer of 2018, because it was not a peaceful time inside the Watts household, even though Shannon may not have fully understood how bad things had gotten. She and Chris had been having serious problems. Their finances were under enormous strain. They were spending more than they were making, and the pressure of that was showing. Chris had grown distant, quieter. He had started working out obsessively. He had lost a significant amount of weight. People who knew him said he seemed changed, lighter, almost giddy, in a way that did not quite make sense given everything they were going through. Shannon noticed. She talked about it. She told friends something felt off. She had gone to a gender reveal event in Arizona, taking the girls with her, while Chris stayed home. And during that trip, when she was away, when she was celebrating the coming of baby Nico with people she loved, Chris Watts was not alone. He was with Nicole Kessinger. We will come back to her. But first, I need you to hold on to this image of Shannon, of a woman who came home from that trip genuinely trying to make her marriage work, who sat with Chris and had conversations about their future, who wanted more than anything to save what they had built together. She fought for her family until she had no more fight left to give. And the least I can do, the absolute least I can do, is fight for her name. I will not move past these two names without giving them the time they deserve. Bella Watts, 5 years old. If you have seen the home videos that Shannon posted, and many of you have, then you know exactly who Bella was. She was bright, curious. She had this way of talking that made you smile without even trying. She was old enough to have a personality all her own, to have favorite things and opinions, and a whole interior life that was just beginning to unfold. Bella was 5. Celeste Watts, 3 years old. Celeste was the little one, still so small, still in that stage of childhood where the world is enormous and everything in it is fascinating. She called her father Daddy. She slept in a toddler bed. She was 3 years old on August 13th, 2018. I want you to carry those ages, 5 and 3, because when we talk about what happened at that oil field, when we talk about the crude oil tanks, I need you to already know who we're talking about. I need you to feel the weight of those names before I tell you what was done. Bella and Celeste. They trusted him completely, the way children trust a parent, without question, without hesitation, without any possible understanding of what was coming. I will say their names as many times as this script requires, because they deserve to be named, not referenced, named. Now, let me walk you through the morning of August 13th, 2018. Shannon had returned home from her trip in the early hours of the morning, 2 o'clock approximately. A friend had driven her home from the airport. Shannon was tired. She came inside. She went to bed. And that is the last time anyone outside that house saw Shannon Watts alive. What happened inside that house between 2 in the morning and when Chris left for work, that is something only one person fully knows, and that person has given multiple versions of events, each one shifting, each one self-serving, each one carefully constructed to minimize his own responsibility. What we know is this: when the sun came up on August 13th, Shannon was gone, and Bella and Celeste were gone with her. A neighbor's security camera, and this is one of the most chilling details of the entire case. Chris Watts caught loading his work truck in the early morning darkness. He was calm. He was methodical. He moved with the kind of unhurried efficiency that a man uses when he has somewhere to be and nothing on his conscience. He drove to the Anadarko petroleum oil field site where he worked, and when he arrived at that site, what he did there, what he disposed of there, I will not describe in graphic detail. I will not do that, because these were not items. These were Shannon and Bella and Celeste, and they deserved far more dignity than what was given to them in that field. What I will tell you is this. Dr. Phil McGraw, in his analysis of this case, does not shy away from the physical reality of what Chris Watts did. He names it plainly. He does so not to sensationalize, because the truth of what happened matters, because hiding it does not protect the victims. It only protects the comfortable fiction that a man like Chris Watts could not exist in a neighborhood like this one, in a family like this one, behind a face like his. He could. He did. And we have to look at that directly if we're going to understand it. Later that same day, and I need you to really hear this, later that same day, Chris Watts contacted a real estate agent about listing the family home for sale. The same day, Shannon, Bella, Celeste, and Nico had been gone for hours, and he was already making calls about the house. That single detail tells you almost everything you need to know about the kind of man we are dealing with. By the afternoon of August 13th, Shannon's friends were worried. She was the kind of person who stayed in constant contact. She was always on her phone, always checking in, always responding. When she went quiet, when the texts went unanswered and the calls went to voicemail, the people who loved her knew immediately that something was wrong. Her friend Nicole Atkinson drove to the house. She knocked on the door. Chris Watts answered. And from the very first moments of that interaction, from the very first words out of his mouth, trained investigators would later note that something was deeply, fundamentally off. He was cooperative, polite even. He said he did not know where Shannon was. He said they had argued. He said she had left, maybe taken the girls somewhere. He offered explanations that sounded, on the surface, like the words of a worried husband. But underneath those words, underneath the careful sentences and the even tone and the composed expression, the investigators who studied this case found something else entirely. Now, I want to take a moment to properly introduce the two people whose analysis forms the backbone of the video you are about to watch. Dr. Phil McGraw. He has spent decades studying human behavior. He's a trained psychologist who understands how people present themselves under pressure, how they construct narratives, how they manage their own emotions in front of others, how the body and the voice and the eyes betray what the words are trying to hide. He has sat across from people who have done terrible things. He has interviewed them. He has studied them. And he has spent years trying to help ordinary people recognize the patterns that dangerous people use so that those ordinary people can protect themselves and the people they love. The physical evidence of a body processing unbearable emotion. Chris Watts showed none of that. Dr. Phil does not say this to be cruel. He says it because it is a clinically significant observation, because the absence of those physical markers, combined with everything else they observed, tells a story that the words themselves were designed to conceal. The language of distance. We already talked about the pronouns, but I want to go deeper here, because Dr. Phil's analysis of the language Chris Watts used is one of the most illuminating parts of the entire video. There is a concept in forensic linguistics, in the study of how language reveals truth and conceals deception, called distancing language, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is the way a person creates psychological distance between themselves and the thing they are describing. Often it is unconscious. The mind knows what the mouth cannot say, and so it reaches for words that feel safer, words that create space, words that allow a person to talk about something without actually touching it. The kids were there, not Bella and Celeste. She went somewhere, not Shanann went somewhere. I just want them home, not I want Shanann home, I want my daughters home, not the names that should have been on his lips every single waking moment. That distance is not a quirk of speech. It is not a habit. It is a signal, and investigators who understood that signal knew early on that the story Chris Watts was telling did not match the emotional reality of a man who had genuinely lost his family. Oh. And then there were the smiles. Dr. Phil describes them, Nancy Grace confirms them, and once you know what to look for, once you understand what these small, involuntary expressions mean, you cannot unsee them. The psychological term is duping delight. It refers to the involuntary micro-expression of pleasure that some people experience when they believe they are successfully deceiving someone. It is not a full smile. It is not obvious. It is a flicker, a barely perceptible lift at the corners of the mouth, a flash of something that does not belong in a conversation about missing children. And Chris Watts had it, repeatedly. In the very moments when a grieving father should have been at his most devastated, there was this flicker, this leak, the face betraying what the voice was trying so hard to conceal. Dr. Phil is measured in how he presents this. He does not overstate it. He does not sensationalize. He simply names what he sees and explains what it means. And what it means is that somewhere beneath the performance of a worried husband, there was a man who believed he had done this perfectly, who thought he was winning, who felt in those moments a kind of thrill that had no business being there at all. That is one of the most chilling things about this entire case, not the crime itself, as horrific as it is, but that flicker, that small, involuntary moment of pride in what he had done. The body language, what the camera saw. There is also the footage from the neighbor's security camera, and the experts who analyzed that footage found something worth noting. When investigators showed Chris Watts that footage, when they sat across from him in that interrogation room and played the video of him loading his truck in the early morning darkness, his response was not what you would expect from a man who was innocent. An innocent man watching surveillance footage of himself doing something completely ordinary does not panic, does not freeze, does not have to recalibrate. Chris Watts panicked. His body changed the moment that footage appeared, and a body language expert who reviewed the interrogation footage noted that throughout his conversations with investigators, Chris Watts paced back and forth, a repeated rhythmic movement that experts identify as a self-soothing behavior, the body doing what it can to manage the anxiety that the face and the voice are trying desperately to hide. The pacing, the smiles, the dry eyes, the distancing language, none of these things on their own are evidence of guilt, but together, all of them, layered on top of each other, consistent across every interview, every conversation, every moment this man was observed by people who knew what to look for, together they build a portrait, and the portrait is not of a grieving husband. The police interrogation of Christopher Watts is one of the most studied interrogations in recent American criminal history, and rightly so, because what happened in that room, what unfolded over those hours, what cracked and eventually broke, is a masterclass in investigative technique and in the particular way that guilt, when it is carrying something this heavy, eventually finds its way out.
Chris Watts went into that interrogation confident. That is the assessment of the experts. He believed walking in that he had this, that he had been careful enough, thorough enough, that there was no direct evidence connecting him to what had happened, and that a man who maintained his story with enough consistency could walk out of that room and back into the life he was trying to build. He laughed at points in that room.
He laughed. And this is where Dr. Phil's concept of duping delight becomes most visible and most devastating. Because that laughter was not nerves. Nervous laughter sounds different. It is tighter, more apologetic, aware of itself. This was something closer to confidence, to the pleasure of a man who thought he was performing well, who thought the investigators across from him were buying it. They were not buying it. Investigators showed him the surveillance footage. They walked him through the timeline. They asked him question after question, layer after layer, and each time his answers shifted slightly, not dramatically, not in ways that were immediately obvious, but in the small, accumulated ways that trained interrogators look for. The details that change, the timeline that does not quite hold, the story that reveals its own seams under sustained pressure. And then they used a technique, a specific, deliberate technique designed to fracture the narrative of someone who is protecting themselves. They told Chris Watts that they believed he had killed Shanann in a moment of passion, not in cold blood, and that they needed him to help them understand what she had done to provoke it. They framed it as an invitation to explain himself, to be understood, to shift at least some of the blame. And he took the invitation. He said that Shanann had killed Bella and Celeste. He said he had witnessed it happening. He said he had reacted. He said all of this while the investigators listened and took notes and knew with absolute certainty that he was lying, that the physical evidence at the oil field told a completely different story. Oh, he tried to blame her, the woman he had murdered, the mother of his children. He tried to put her name on what he had done. And in that moment, in that ugly, desperate maneuver, you see the full shape of who Christopher Watts is. Not just a man who committed a terrible crime, but a man who, even after, was willing to destroy her reputation to save himself. Shanann Watts cannot speak for herself, so we speak for her. That is what this channel exists to do. Every crime has a motive. And in this case, the motive, when it was fully revealed, was both utterly ordinary and almost impossible to comprehend. Christopher Watts wanted a new life. That is it. That is the foundation of all of this. He had met a woman named Nicole Kessinger. He was having an affair with her, and somewhere in the weeks and months leading up to August 13th, he had decided, consciously, deliberately, with premeditation, that his family was not something he wanted to walk away from. They were something he wanted to erase. Dr. Phil addresses this directly, and what he says is worth sitting with. Most people who fall out of love, most people who find themselves in an affair, who want out of a marriage, who feel trapped or unhappy or suffocated, most people pursue a divorce. They have a painful conversation. They cause real harm and real hurt, but they do it within the bounds of what human beings do to each other when relationships end. They walk away from the life, not from the people. Chris Watts did not pursue a divorce. He did not have the conversation. He did not walk away. He made a different calculation entirely. Dr. Phil describes him plainly and clinically as a malignant narcissist, a psychopath, and he is careful to define what that means. It does not mean Chris Watts was visibly unstable or erratic or frightening. Psychopathy, at its most dangerous, looks like nothing. It looks like a neighbor you wave to. It looks like a man who fixes your roof and plays with his kids in the driveway and makes small talk about the weather. It hides itself inside normalcy because normalcy is the perfect disguise. The financial pressure was real. The Watts family was spending far more than they were earning. There were debts, there were pressures. Chris Watts, by multiple accounts, had been pulling away emotionally for months, checking out of the marriage long before he made the decision that ended it. And Nicole Kessinger represented something to him: freedom, a fresh start, a new chapter with none of the weight of the one he was already in. Now, I want you to pay close attention when you watch the video to what Nicole Kessinger says and how she says it. Listen to the specific words she chooses. Listen to the moments where her tone shifts, where something in the way she speaks about Chris Watts changes. Listen to what she knew and what she says she did not know, and the space between those two things. Listen carefully, and then come back to the comments and tell me what you noticed, because I think you are going to catch something, and I want to know if you caught the same thing I did. Shanann's Facebook and the signs we should have seen. I want to come back to Shanann's Facebook page for a moment, because in the months leading up to her death, there were signs. Not signs that anyone recognized in time, not signs that were obvious or alarming in isolation, but signs that, in retrospect, tell a story of a woman who was trying everything she knew how to try to hold her family together. She posted a lot about her marriage in those months, about the work she and Chris were doing, about going to therapy, about choosing each other. She was publicly, vocally committed to making it work, and there is something both beautiful and heartbreaking about that commitment. Beautiful because it was genuine, because she meant every word, because she loved that man and believed he loved her back, and heartbreaking because of what we now know was happening on his side of that equation. She also posted about the pregnancy, about baby Nico, about how excited Bella and Celeste were to have a little brother coming. There are videos of those girls talking about the baby, about what they would teach him, what they would show him, what it would be like to be big sisters. 5-year-old Bella with her ideas, 3-year-old Celeste with her enormous eyes and her whole future ahead of her. Those videos exist. You can find them. And I am telling you, if you have never watched them and you feel strong enough, watch them. Not for the pain of it, but because those girls deserve to be seen as who they actually were, not as victims, as children, as full, bright, irreplaceable human beings who had whole lives ahead of them. Shanann came home from her North Carolina trip on August 13th, wanting to try, wanting to have the conversation, wanting to salvage something. She had been away for 5 weeks, taking the girls to visit family, giving Chris space, hoping that absence might clarify something for him. It clarified something, but not what she had hoped. She came home at 2 in the morning. She went to bed, and she never had the chance to have the conversation she came home to have. I think about that. I think about it a lot, actually, about the fact that she came home wanting to fix things, that her last hours were spent in a house with a man who had already made his decision, and she had no idea. She had no idea. That is the part of this that keeps me up at night. The prison chapter, what happened after. Christopher Watts eventually confessed, not in the interrogation room, not to the investigators who had been so careful and so methodical in building the case against him. He confessed later in a conversation with investigators from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation in a meeting that was arranged through his family. He pled guilty to 9 counts, including first-degree murder. He avoided the death penalty. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. He is currently in federal prison in Wisconsin, Dodge Correctional Institution, transferred there from Colorado for his own protection after it became clear that his presence in a Colorado prison was creating serious safety issues. And some of you have been asking, and I hear you, about what life looks like for a man like Chris Watts inside those walls, about the dynamics, about the Aryan Brotherhood, about the Mexican gangs, about the way power moves in a place like that, and what it means for someone who did what he did to his children. We are still watching that story. We are still watching. What I will say is this. The prison system is not a simple place, and men who have harmed children occupy a particular position within that system, one that is rarely comfortable and rarely safe. The code that exists inside those walls, as brutal and as arbitrary as it sometimes is, has a very clear understanding of what happened to Bella and Celeste, and it responds to that understanding in its own way. We are watching, and when there is something verified, something that serves the truth and honors these victims, we will bring it to you. That is a promise. Before we go any further, I want to stop. My family, this community, I want us to take a moment together. Thousands of eyes are watching this channel right now, and every single one of you is here for a reason. You did not stumble into this space. You are here because you understand that these cases matter, that the names matter, that the details matter, that behind every crime statistic, behind every case file, behind every headline, there is a person, there are people, there are families who are forever altered by what happened. Shanann Watts, Bella Watts, Celeste Watts, and baby Nico, who never got the chance to be anything at all in this world except loved, who existed and was wanted and was named and who should have been here. I want you to type something in the comments, anything, a prayer, a word, a name. Let the family see, let the world see that this community has not forgotten them, that we are still here, that we still say their names. Rest in peace, Shanann. Rest in peace, Bella. Rest in peace, Celeste. You are remembered, you are loved, you mattered, and you will not be forgotten. Let that comment section fill with light for those names, because that is why we do this.
Last words. I have been doing this for a while now, and I will be honest with you. There are days when it is heavy, when the cases get inside you and they stay there. When you sit down to write a script like this one, and you feel the weight of it in a way that does not lift when you close the laptop. But then I think about Shanann, about the way she showed up on Facebook every single day, talking to people, connecting with people, being seen and seeing others. I think about the fact that she was a real person with a real voice and a real life. And I think about the fact that the very least I can do is refuse to let her be reduced to a headline, to a case number, to a name that people vaguely remember from a news cycle 5 years ago. That is all this is. One person refusing to let another person be reduced to a headline. That is True Crime Stories HD. That is what we do here. And we are not stopping anytime soon. This community has grown into something I never expected. When I started this channel, when I sat down for the first time and decided to put my voice behind these cases, I did not know what it would become. I did not know that thousands of people would find their way here. People who care the way I care. People who feel the weight of this work the way I feel it. People who refuse to let these stories be forgotten.
And I do not take a single one of you for granted. Not one. If this is your first time here, welcome. Welcome to this community. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, because I drop cases that will keep you up at night. Cases that deserve exactly the kind of attention we give them here. Cases that will make you think and feel, and, I hope, help you recognize something in your own life or in someone else's life that might make a difference. I love you all. You keep me pushing, fighting, going, even when I am tired, even when I am sick, even when the cases are so heavy I do not know how to carry them. You keep me going, and I mean that. Don't watch this and leave. Subscribe. This community needs you in it. Because here is what we are going to do right now. I am going to stop talking. I am going to let the video do what it does best. Dr. Phil and Nancy Grace sitting across from each other, working through this case together, pulling back every layer, naming every detail. They are going to take it from here. Watch every second.
Laughs, he thinks he's the smartest person in the room.
It's a deep dive
It was an oh my God moment.
that only Dr. Phil can do.
The scariest part is a narcissist thinks he can get away with it. It was an unthinkable crime that left people asking, Dr. Phil, who does this kind of thing? Chris Watts, a handsome and seemingly doting husband and father, seemed to have it all. He and his wife, Shanann, had 2 beautiful daughters and a son on the way. Then, in the early morning hours of August 13th, Shanann and the children mysteriously disappeared. Chris went on TV and begged for his family's safe return. But oddly, he didn't shed one single tear. And then in a disturbing twist, Chris Watts is arrested, charged with their murders, and even more horrifyingly confesses to disposing of their bodies in a heartless and shocking manner. So what kind of man would do such a thing? Well, behind the smiles of this picture-perfect family were dark secrets that led to murder, and we're going to talk about how you can see those things coming. We're going to talk about it now. Take a look.
A dark mystery in Frederick, Colorado.
Concern in Frederick right now about a pregnant woman who's missing along with her 2 daughters.
With a grieving father and husband left behind in a very empty house.
I have no inclination of where they're at right now. When I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. She wasn't here. Kids weren't here. I have no idea where they went.
But in a video confession days later, Watts told his father he murdered Shanann in a fit of rage, claiming she killed their children.
The husband of a missing pregnant woman is in jail and now charged with her murder.
The day Watts killed his family, he called his daughter's school to say they would no longer be attending, and he also contacted a real estate agent about selling his home.
The innocent laughter of children is gone.
Mommy has a baby in her belly.
And the story of a once growing family ended.
We have 2 kids. We live in Colorado, and he's the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Despite portraying a happy family on social media, text messages between Shanann and Watts in the weeks leading up to the murders showed a fractured relationship. Prosecutors say Watts killed his family because of an affair he was having with a co-worker, Nicole Kessinger. In a recorded interview with police the day Shanann and the girls were found dead, Kessinger appeared distraught.
Oh, sad, and she's pregnant. God, and they're so cute. They're so little.
Now the question remains, where are their bodies?
Now, Chris Watts, who everyone described as calm, loving, and sweet, had murdered his children and wife in cold blood.
He allegedly told investigators where to find their bodies on a property owned by the company he worked for.
If the senseless deaths of their loved ones weren't enough, the discovery of their bodies was gut-wrenching.
Shannon's body was found in a shallow grave near the girls' bodies, submerged for days in storage tanks filled with crude oil.
Christopher Watts has been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of tampering with evidence.
His motive was simple, Your Honor. He had a desire for a fresh start. Get a divorce. You don't annihilate your family and throw them away like garbage.
Court sentenced murderer Chris Watts to life in prison for killing his pregnant wife and daughters.
I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you.
Thank you, God, for everything.
You heartless monster. Prison is too good for you.
Now, I'm here with my really good friend, Nancy Grace. She is an American legal commentator and television journalist, as well as founder of Crime Online. So, Nancy, welcome. Please welcome Nancy Grace. Nancy, when you saw this case, I mean, what was it about this that you think captured the nation's attention?
While Chris Watts, is trying to figure out how he's going to get with his lover. I mean, his wife was only gone a couple of weeks to see her family, and bam, everything was over in those few weeks. She was out buying self-help books. And just thinking of her, you know, in the bookstore looking for self-help books, how can I improve myself? And the whole time your husband is plotting your murder. One of the things that I've noticed, and you know, I've been involved in forensic psychology I did a postdoctoral fellowship in forensic psychology immediately when I graduated. So I've been doing this for 40 plus years, and you see certain characteristics and traits in these people, and he started making really dumb mistakes really early, which narcissistic people often do because they see things only from their point of view. Now, before I play the interview, I want you to watch for some of the signs that we look for when you're doing a behavioral analysis, when you're looking at the psychology of a criminal. He doesn't refer to his family in any kind of intimate way. He doesn't use their names. It's called distancing. He uses pronouns like they and those kids. He only says their names one time. He says Shanann once, he says Bella once, and when he says Bella, he talks about her in the past tense, like she is already dead. And then I also want you to look at his physical distancing. He's in closed body position, and he's rocking back and forth in a self-soothing sort of way. And he keeps getting further and further from the questions.
And watch him licking his lips. And the fact of the matter is, psychologically, he's trying to wipe away everything he's saying. Take a look.
Wherever they're at, like, I have no inclination of where they're at right now. Like, I've exhausted like every friend that I know of, and every friend that I have has called friends that Shanann has that maybe I didn't know about, and it's just like it's like it's vanished. Like, she's not, like, when I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. Like, she wasn't here, kids weren't here. I have no idea like where they went. And it's just earth-shattering. I don't feel like this is even real right now. It's like a nightmare that I just can't wake up from. Bella was gonna start kindergarten next Monday, and they were just getting ready to start back again. I'm just hoping right now that she's somewhere safe, and maybe she's there. But right now it's just like, if she's vanished, like, I want her back so bad. I want those kids back so bad. There's no cameras in the backyard or anything like that, so it's really hard to even suspect anything right now as far as how she could have left, or if someone came picked her up, or if somebody took her. I've never seen something like this in my lifetime unless it was on TV or a movie, and this doesn't seem real at all. It just seems like I'm living in a nightmare and I can't get out of it. I just want them home so bad.
when I saw that interview, I said, we're looking at a killer right here. These are signals like a Navy flag man waving around what's going on. All right, now coming up, after Shanann Watts and her children were reported missing, police went to search the house and talk to her husband, Chris. They videotaped the whole thing. We're going to show you that video and tell you why police may have already thought he was the main suspect. We'll be right back.
Did you tell your mother-in-law that she went to a friend's today?
So she went to a friend's house, but that's all I knew.
Who was she supposed to go to?
That's all she told me. Said she's going to a friend's house to take the kids.
And later,
research on psychopaths, and that's a clinical term. It's easy for these people to kill other people because they don't feel stressed. It's a DNA thing.
New video obtained shows the moments after Chris Watts murdered his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters. It comes from a neighbor's security camera. It shows Watts walk out of his home in Frederick, then backs his truck up in the driveway, parking it so a portion of the bed is in the garage. It also shows Watts walking around his truck and putting items inside, including a red gasoline can. Then Watts drives away from his home.
Today we're going to take you inside the mind of a killer, inside the mind of Chris Watts, who you just saw on surveillance calmly loading up his truck before driving off with the bodies of his dead family in the back. Now, who would commit such a heinous act? Well, we've called in experts who have dealt with hundreds of cases involving sociopaths, but they say none even come close to Chris Watts. Take a look.
The Chris Watts case is one of the most disturbing cases that I've ever seen.
Chris Watts is what we call a family annihilator. I haven't seen many cases like this because family annihilators usually commit suicide after the murders. Chris didn't do that. Chris is also a narcissist. He is the most important person in his world, and he's also a psychopath. And a narcissistic psychopath is a really bad combo.
How he just decided to erase his family. He threw him in the back of his pickup truck, drove him and threw his daughters into an oil bin, buried his wife in a shallow grave.
Chris, like most killers, is not terribly bright, which is why he was caught so fast.
Who was she supposed to go to?
That's all she told me.
When I saw Chris being interviewed, I said, wow.
When I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. Like, she wasn't here. Kids weren't here.
This guy just gave away the farm. When he hugged himself and the shrugs, that's defensive. He pretty much just confessed to murdering his wife and children. I know that Dr. Phil has a background in criminal psychology, and I'd be very interested to see what he thinks.
Well, Candace DeLong is someone that I have tremendous respect for. She is a former FBI criminal profiler and criminologist. She also is the host of Investigation Discovery's Deadly Women. Now, Steve Cardian is a former detective and author of a really important book that teaches women how to protect themselves. It's the new superpower for women. Candace, let me start with you. You saw this tape. You've seen some of his interviews. What did you see?
The interview he gave to the TV people on his porch, they did a close-in shot. His eyes were neither red nor swollen. This was not a man that had been up all night, worried and crying. Another thing that occurred to me, he says, yeah, when I came home, nobody was here. It was like a ghost town. It was a ghost town. He made it a ghost town by killing everyone else that lived there.
You bring up such an important point. Let's take a quick look at that little snippet.
It's like, it just vanished. Like, she's not, like, when I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. Like, she wasn't here. Kids weren't here. It's like, I have no idea, like, where they went.
This is a guy with 2 children and a pregnant wife, vanished. And he, like you say, there's no redness in his eyes. That is such a good point. He doesn't look like he is emoted at all.
Yeah, well, it's what I don't see that tells me something's wrong
I didn't see
here.
a wedding band. Has he already gotten rid of that?
I didn't look.
He also gave smiles and laughter that was completely improper. When he was talking about Bella, he says, she was. That's final as an investigator. That jumps out to me as he knows that she's already gone.
And people that are narcissistic and think they're getting away with something, it's called duping delight. They can't help but gloat when they think they're pulling the wool over your eyes.
He was celebrating his performance.
Yeah, and so let's take a look at this oil tank where the bodies were discovered. This is where he put his children.
Dr. Phil, I gotta tell you
something. That feeder trap is 8 inches wide. The width of those girls, shoulder to shoulder, is 9.5 inches. Now, I don't want to say this to be too graphic, but you have to understand the nature of the beast we're talking about here. He had to break their bones to get them in there.
And when they tried to lift the girls up, their skin came off. They called it, doctors always have nice words for things. They called it degloving because he left them there.
So when you say, Dr. Phil, who does this? Who does this is a malignant narcissist psychopath. That's what makes these people so dangerous. Coming up, after his family vanished, Chris Watts wasn't acting like a grieving husband, as we say. He certainly wasn't acting like a grieving father. Now we know the man begging for his wife and daughters to come home had killed them all. We're going to look for more hidden clues in his interviews next and talk more about what pathology lies inside this individual. And we're going to talk about the fact that these predators are walking among us. We'll be right back. His neighbors had cameras, and he's there seeing this footage for the first time.
It was definitely an oh my God moment. There was no doubt.
And later, what's happening in that room at that point from the police point of view?
He says, I don't know what else I can tell you. They, boom, in their mind, we got him.
My daddy is a hero. He helps me grow up strong. My daddy, I love you.
That was 4-year-old Bella Watts singing about her daddy, her hero, just weeks before he murdered her. Let's take a look at Chris Watts talking to the police. Watch carefully at his behavior.
How long have you guys been married? So, we've been together 8 years, married 6 this year. Yeah. And this is very unusual behavior.
What's this door right here go to?
Locked.
Do you have a key for it?
Get here and just play it back. Yeah. So you normally keep it locked? Yeah, because they would go in there and they'd be in soap. Like last time we had Vaseline everywhere. So that was not fun. So does she normally make the beds, the kids' beds? No.
Did you tell your mother-in-law that she went to a friend's today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What friend?
Close to a friend's house, but that's all I knew.
Who was she supposed to go to?
That's all she told me. Said she's going to a friend's house to take the kids.
When did she tell you that?
This morning when we talked about 5 o'clock. I'm going to try to run some things down using her phone and then see if we can't find somebody. If nobody has heard anything at all, then we'll probably pull the trigger a little bit quicker. Go that route. So.
Susan Constantine is a renowned body language expert. What do you see?
Well, first of all, his emotions are detached. When somebody is concerned about someone that's missing, you're going to see pain or suffering in their forehead, this wrinkling up, the concern. When we see him pacing back and forth, that's internal anxiety. So it's a self-soothing gesture too. The ones where he's holding his hand like this, other moments he's holding his head, and that is showing that he's concerned, but it's also panic. There's lots of emotions that are flagged. So whatever we're thinking and feeling is is being exhibited through our nonverbal communication.
Well, let's look at him watching some surveillance video. This is at his neighbor's house. His neighbors had cameras, and so they caught him on camera backing his truck into the garage where he loaded the bodies in, and he's there seeing this footage for the first time. Watch this.
517.
Maybe park out there on the side. I just want to get everything in. Be easier to loading everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in.
Do you think this may be the first time that he thinks, holy I'm caught?
It was definitely an oh my God moment. There was no doubt. So when he was first looking at the video, it didn't hit because he didn't know that what he was about to see. The minute he saw that, oh my God, that's when his hands came up. He started to pace. And if you look at it close, his flushing.
He turns his back to it. He doesn't want to look at it.
He can't. He can't look at it because it's one of those oh my God moments. He almost has to deflect from it.
Well, after Chris left, the police spoke to his neighbor alone.
All right, appreciate your time. Thanks. Hopefully something comes up here. Yeah.
He's not acting right.
No.
He's never fishing. He's never rocking back and forth. And if you look, he never breaks his stuff in and out of the garage ever.
Right.
But watch, you'll see him get out. And he walks back and forth a couple times. To be completely honest with you, my wife and I were kind of wondering when she was on vacation if something happened, because I've heard them full out screaming at each other at the top of their lungs, and he gets crazy.
Really? And that's pretty recently?
Yeah. Well, that's why she went and visited people, is because she wanted to get away from the situation.
Coming up next, inside the room where Chris Watts was interrogated for more than 6 hours, you won't believe the reason he laughs when he's being questioned about killing his wife and his children, plus what his mistress told police. That's next.
What are ways, because I need to make sure that you know what I'm talking about, what are ways that you can make someone disappear?
It's a hard question to answer.
The defendant coldly and deliberately ended 4 lives. Not in a fit of rage, not by way of accident, but in a calculated and sickening manner. What must Bella, age 4, and Celeste, age 3, must have experienced or thought is their father, the one man on this planet who was supposed to nurture and protect them, was snuffing out their lives. The man seated to my right smothered his daughters.
The heinous murders of Shanann Watts and her young daughters Bella and Celeste has people asking, what kind of father could be such a monster that he not only kills his pregnant wife, but his 2 beautiful little girls? Well, the answer is someone with a narcissistic personality disorder. The scariest part is a narcissist actually thinks he can get away with it. And they get caught so easily because they don't look at the other points of view. Take a look at this video of Chris being interrogated and pay attention to the very end.
What are ways, because I need to make sure that you know what I'm talking about, what are ways that you can make someone disappear?
I mean, it's like, it's hard.
And I know this stuff.
It's a hard question to answer.
Right.
Because I didn't have nothing to do with this disappearance.
Right.
So
Yeah, now he laughs and he smiles because at this point, he still thinks he's the smartest person in the room, right?
Yeah.
He still believes he's the smartest person in the room.
They always do. Research on psychopaths, and that's a clinical term, and the hallmark is that they don't feel guilt, remorse, or empathy. It's easy for these people to kill other people because they don't feel stress. There's been research on psychopaths that oftentimes their pulse doesn't even increase when they're committing a crime. Or lying on a lie detector test. They don't get nervous like the rest of us do. It's a DNA thing.
There is a difference between the irresistible impulse and the impulse not resisted. Now think about that. There is an irresistible impulse where something happens and you just don't have the ability to resist. The crime of passion, or something where you're blackout rage, you're just so incensed you cannot control yourself, versus the impulse you choose not to resist. And there's every indication that this was a premeditated crime. He did not snap.
No, he did
right?
not snap.
You don't believe he snapped?
Absolutely not. Snapping is when sudden emotion and shock happens. You walk in the door of your home, you go in the bedroom, and your spouse is with your sister, or something like that, and you just lose it, and you might pick up a lamp and throw it. That is snapping. Snapping is not premeditatedly taking the lives of 3 people. As soon as he had his hands around the first child that he killed first, he could have said, no, this is not right. I've got to find another way. He killed her and then did it again to the other child,
right,
as only a psychopath could.
Chris was having a secret affair with a coworker.
I don't know how much he banked on those two running off together, because he was seeing other women as well behind Shanann's back.
A grieving family confronts the man who killed their pregnant daughter and their grandchildren.
How dare you take the lives of my daughter Shannon, Bella, Celeste, and Nico?
I want the world to know that our daughter and her children were so loved by us.
So you ask, why not just divorce this person? Right? If you want out so bad, why not just divorce? Understand, a narcissist wants to be the center of attention. The narcissist has all kinds of currency. So what happens if he divorces? He still has financial burdens. They had taken bankruptcy once before. They were in debt again. They were 3 payments behind on their mortgage. They were $8,000 in credit card debt. They were totally drowning. And they had another baby on the way when they already were in debt. But if you murder the family, you make money because there's $20,000 life insurance policies on the 2 children and a $50,000 life insurance policy on her. So you go $90,000 to the good, and more importantly, you become the object of sympathy. The police discovered that while his wife and children were away, Chris was having a secret affair with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger. They talked to her. Take a look.
I think a lot of people are going to probably assume that I was the catalyst for his movement, but I don't think, not me instructing him, but him deciding to do that because he had me in his life and because he was so infatuated with what we had going on. But I try to put the reason to it at the end, why would you wipe out your family to be with me? It doesn't compute. It's how would that go? Hey, my family just disappeared, and you think that I'm gonna just not be concerned about that?
Okay, and by the way, take a look at that picture of her and his wife. Do you notice they look an awful lot alike?
Dr. Phil, though, wait, hold on a moment. Nicole Kessinger should not feel that special, okay? Because he was meeting people on Tinder. I don't know how much he banked on those two running off together, because he was seeing other women as well behind Shanann's back.
Yeah, if they'll do it with you, they'll do it to you.
True.
Let's look at this Tinder tape.
And we just met at the parking lot at Chick-fil-A. I don't know, it sounds funny. And I got something to drink, and then we just went back to my house, and he was rough, as in, just pulling my hair and putting his arms around my neck. It was like a rape fantasy thing. That's how I, describe it. It's really I just remember thinking, what the when he left.
And again, we're showing him no impulse control, immediate gratification, and no sense of how this is going to play once your family disappears. What are you going to tell your girlfriend? All right, next, the telling text Shanann sent her friend before she was killed. We'll take a look at that when we come back.
We did it again. I like that shirt.
That's awesome. Guess when you want to, it happens.
I want to take a look at where he is told that he failed a polygraph. And, Steve, you've been in that room. I want you to comment on this after we look at it.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
No.
Did you physically cause Shanann's disappearance?
No.
Are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann?
No.
Do we want to talk to you about the results, okay?
Sure.
So, it is completely clear that you were not honest during the testing, and I think you already know that. You did not pass the polygraph test.
Okay.
Okay. So now we need to talk about what actually happened. I feel like you're probably ready to do that.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise. Chris, I'm never stop. Stop. Just stop for a minute. Take a deep breath. Everything that I have told you, I did not lie on this polygraph. I don't know how much I could tell you right now. I did not.
It's not even an option right now because you did not pass the polygraph. So I know you were being deceptive. So that's not even an issue right now. The issue right now is what happened to Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. That's the issue right now.
If we bring in your dad, will you promise me that you'll talk to him? Would it be easier if you told him than you told us? Sure. She Arnold? Yeah. And then I doubt. Well, no, I doubt not her. Your her. So she started her with the kids. Oh, you guys want to know? She's mother. Our children. When I was downstairs, they came back up. They were gone. I don't know, we talking about separation and everything about I don't know, what else to say. I freaked out. I was in my kid.
That's chilling. What's happening in that room at that point from the police point of view?
When he says okay, it's not something an innocent person was. He's confirming that he failed the lie detector test. And then he says, I don't know what else or what I can tell you. They, boom, in their mind, we got him.
What was the moment? What was the first identifiable moment or behavior that indicated that this was going to happen? He didn't want a third baby. He was afraid. He couldn't financially afford that. He wanted to separate, and his wife was not going along with that. And he really fancied himself as a new man. Look how much weight he had lost. He had really gotten himself in shape. He wanted to hit the reset button, and in his ignorant, immature way, he thought this was the way to go about it.
What motivated Chris to kill his family isn't even in the book of Killing Your Family Motivations.
Right.
I mean, he wanted freedom. He wanted, exactly as you described, to be free of the problems of daily marital life.
Now, Shanann sent a text to a friend and said, here's what I plan to say to him. I know that you need time. I want to give you what you're asking for and respect your space. It is not healthy for me or Nico. I need you to just give a little bit of what I did or didn't do. So I'm not going crazy. She's saying, tell me. In my head, to figure it out. I know I can't fix this by myself, that we are going to have to work together. And while she's planning this, he's planning her murder. We'll be right back. Candace, final comments about this. What do they need to know to understand and protect themselves?
Any man that's in a similar situation, don't be afraid to speak up. You know, I do not want another child, or we're spending too much money. The kids are not going to private school. Release some of the pressure from the marriage, and it might just get better. And from the woman's point of view, or for the wife's point of view, if your husband is under a lot of pressure and is pulling away from you, you need to be very vigilant. And if he is seeing another woman, that woman has his heart, and you are in trouble. Take precautions. Leave if you have to.
Nancy?
You know, Dr. Phil, I'm just so overcome with the sadness of this case. What I take away from this is the truth. This is what happened. And if you are in a relationship and you're the only one in it and you're trying and trying and trying, if you've got a guy like Chris Watts, it's not going to get better. You need to leave and find your happiness.
Yes,
What do you think?
Yeah, and the other thing is that these type of people can be natural performers. They are very likable, they're very approachable, they can be very charismatic, and when you tap into things that you find fault with, they become unglued. So look for those signs. Do they have the appropriate emotion that fits what they're saying? If things are off, ladies and gentlemen, listen to that, because that's telling you it is off, and don't make excuses for it.
Steve, you're an enforcer here. You're a policeman here. You deal with these perpetrators. Tell these people how to protect.
Dr. Phil, it takes about 7 times in domestic issues before a woman will come forward and take action against her husband. So in this case with Watts, he had a great front stage. Look for those little things, those little subtle things behind the stage that are going to tell you that there's a problem. And it may be not be something you need to contact law enforcement for, but reach out to social services, reach out to a psychologist. And I just want to say that law enforcement did an excellent job. He was a horrible criminal, and thank God for that.
Yeah. Don't be in denial. I mean, if something doesn't feel right, acknowledge that to yourself. I'm not saying give up, but I'm saying also be aware in your mind and take precautions. My wife, Robin, is one of the foremost ambassadors in the fight against domestic violence, and she just returned from Capitol Hill where she testified about this and some other issues with women about domestic violence. And she has something that she created called the Aspire app. And the Aspire app is an app that you put on your smartphone, and you can download it for free, and it looks like a news app. It just says news, and when you open it, sure enough, it gives you the news. But it actually is an alert, because you tap it 3 times and it sends out a message to whoever you have pre-programmed it that says, I'm in trouble and I need help and I need it now.
That's right.
And this is a lifeline that saves lives, right?
That's right. And sometimes your abuser will take your phone away from you. So I always like to tell everyone, if you know that you have a friend, a coworker, or a family member being abused, and maybe they have had their phone taken away, do your best to sneak a phone to the victim and download that app. And there's always a way. Find that way to get a phone to a victim so they have it, they can hide it, and that's their lifeline out of that situation. And especially if they have children, they're on that app. There is a page that tells shelters and other places to go when they are ready to get out. But also it says the safe way to exit a violent situation. So there's all kinds of information on there, very life-saving information. I'm very proud of the app. It was recognized on Capitol Hill as one of the top 2 apps at best educating the victims and everyone else on domestic violence. So I do hope that people will go to whengeorgiasmiled.org and download the app. It's free, and it will save lives. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. And think about it ahead of time. If you know you're in a tough situation, make plans because you may need them. So I hope you understand more about what happened after today. Thank you so much, Candace, Nancy. Thank you, Steve. All of this has been so enlightening. I've learned a lot today. I hope you have as well. So I want to thank all of my guests today for their invaluable expertise. I want to remind you that this story is really about these victims. Little Celeste and Bella will never get to grow up, and Shanann will never get to welcome her baby son.
You heard. Because we are not done talking about this. We are never done talking about this. Shanann deserves that. Bella and Celeste deserve that. Baby Nico deserves that. And so does every person watching this right now who has ever loved someone deeply and trusted them completely.